Ha, 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 ha. I know it goes on. Well, more and more and more and more and more. We are starting you're here this day. Today is the first day of our annual program, and it's a pledge program, but it's really, it's a community program. It is about connecting with each other. And so the theme of the whole month is living abundantly, love circles of connection and community. Because our real abundance comes from within, and it comes from that thing that is God in us, God as us. I still don't have this on, so Mary, you might have to just keep. Okay, so thank you. So it does all begin with God. There's God and nothing else. It was interesting that I hadn't paid attention to our sing-along songs, and yet when I was thinking about this and thinking about, well, where do we start? We start with that creator of the universe, that divine presence that's the beloved within us, and loving ourselves enough that we can really see and feel and experience that presence, and loving ourselves enough that we can see and experience that presence in everyone else in our world, with everyone else that we encounter. In classes, often I ask the question, well, where do you feel most sacred? And what do you think the answers are? Nature. Almost always, that's the place. So in nature, somehow there's a connection. And yet, our biggest connections are heart to heart. Our biggest connections are person to person. Once we connect with the divine within, our next connection is with the beloveds around us. And next slide, Mary. So, God to the left of me, God to the right of me, God above, God below. That everything and everywhere, you can't think of a spot that this presence isn't. You can't think of a spot where this principle isn't working, because it's working all the time, 24/7. Into infinity, from infinity, for all time. It works. It works. And sometimes some spiritual teachers, especially some of the older ones, used to say, it works if you work it. But it works even when you don't work it. Unfortunately, our results show what we don't want instead of what we do want. So what this means is, next slide please, is, so what do we mean by connection? And this gives a really good visual of connection, of people. You don't have to see their faces. You see that they're holding on to one another. They're connecting with one another. Next slide, please. Brené Brown does it this way. She says, I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they when they feel seen, heard, and valued. When they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. So, go back to the Brené Brown. Brené Brown is, she's a social worker, researcher who was researching shame. And in her research, she discovered that we feel shame. It's one of the ways we close our hearts off to one another. We judge ourselves and make ourselves bad and wrong. Well, and now the next slide. And in fact, it's the opposite. If we would tell the truth when we're feeling uncomfortable, would connect. So our subjective self, says Dr. Ernest Holmes, is the immediate connection between the absolute and the relative. So if you're thinking, well, where is God in me or as me? What he's saying is that it's our subjective self, that the subjective mind is that connection, And why I say it there is that means whatever you're planting, whatever ideas that you are accepting as true for you. My microphone and a hair are connected right by my lip. There. Now, and I still have the microphone, it's fine. Okay, so what was I saying? Okay, why we pay attention to that is whatever we accept is that's true for us or for life becomes our experience because we plant that idea in divine mind by just thinking about it, by being convinced about it. So if you look in the mirror and you go, gee, baby, you're looking great, that's one seed. That's a great seed to plant. But if you look in the mirror and go, oh, good God, another something, another wrinkle, another pound, another whatever, you're making yourself wrong about, what you've done is planted a seed of something you do not want to experience. You've planted a seed of discontent, a seed of judgment. Next slide, please. So how important it is to connect with others. How important it is in every species. Reverend Judy for Wednesday Wisdom a couple of Wednesdays ago showed this wonderful video of all of these species with each other, friends to each other. And here you see the babies hugging each other, and you see this kitty holding a teddy bear that's holding a teddy bear. We have such a natural affinity to touch, to hug, to make connection physically. Next slide, please. This quote came from Virginia Satir. We need 4 hugs a day for survival. If you live alone, where are you getting your hugs? We need 8 hugs a day for maintenance. This is for health. We need 12 hugs a day for growth. And there's all sorts of research about what it does for you to have connection in that way. Next slide, please. So this is love circles of connection and community. Sorry, Josh. Okay, so what is community? And here you see this group of young people and older people creating a garden, working in a garden together. So that's one idea of community. Next slide, please. This is the dictionary definitions of community, a unified body of individuals. Well, we're unified in that we're all here because we have a belief about consciousness. We have a belief about life. We're unified in that belief. The people with common interests living in a particular area is a community. An interacting population of various kinds of individuals is a community. And a group linked by a common policy is a community. Next slide, please. So Malcolm Gladwell says, the tipping point is the magic moment when an idea crosses the threshold, tips, and spreads like wildfire. So 25 years ago, when I was just starting in this teaching, it was pretty out there. It was on the edge of mainstream. In fact, I was a little concerned when I invited my mom and her 2 sisters to come to a center like this in Calgary where I lived, because I didn't know that they'd understand it, and would I feel judged by what they heard. Now, this is way more mainstream. You can find ideas like this just about every place you go. Every place. Christian churches, Buddhist temple, you can find them every place. Community gatherings in various clubs, etc., not even in spiritual centers. So we're not, and the reason why is that there became a tipping point where the ideas just said, oh, well, that's the way it is. You know, the athletic community has been practicing this for a long, long time. What you think about comes about. They focus on doing that dive exactly the right and perfect way of getting the best time ever, of scoring that goal, or whatever sport or activity they're in. They see it first. See it first. And so there's been a tipping point. And isn't that a great thing? It's a great thing. Years ago, we used to talk about the 100th monkey. It's the very same thing. The 100th monkey simply is that the idea that one monkey on one island, somewhere wherever monkeys live on islands, washed his potato. And then all of the monkeys started looking at him, and they washed their potatoes, and then, and this is the tipping point, this is the threshold. all of the neighboring island monkeys. And all around the globe, the monkeys started washing their potatoes before eating them. That principle is what happens when a mass of consciousness, when the consciousness of one way is greater than the old consciousness. And so that's the tipping point in this community, is the tipping point of love. Mary, next one. Thanks. So Edwin says this: abundance is having a vitally alive, healthy body for the God being that we are to express through. Edwin Gaines is a wonderful spiritual teacher. Many of you have heard her. She's been here, not to this center, but to our old center many, many times. But notice what she's saying. And she's definitely all about the money too, but she's saying abundance is having a vitally alive, healthy body for the God being that we are to express through. So abundance includes our health. It includes our state of mind. It includes our creativity. It includes our loving relationships. So love circles of connection is abundance. Next slide, please. William Blake said, if the doors of perception are cleansed, everything would appear as it is, infinite. So if everything is infinite, doors to perception are cleansed means when we see through the eyes of the divine, we see divinely. So if I see through the eyes of the divine, I see like God sees, if God were a person. I see without judgment. I see with greater and greater awareness of truth. Next slide, please. So we're finally at today's title, Resting in the Abundant Ocean. So resting in the abundant ocean. There's an ocean of abundance, and some of us are flailing around in it. Some of us are thrashing around thinking that somehow there's not enough. That's the main spiritual lie that there is. There's not enough, or I'm not enough. The two main lies. So resting in the abundant ocean, I don't know if you can tell, this is a person just floating in the ocean. And if that were an ocean of abundance, are you that at ease with your prosperity, with your health, with your relationships, with your creativity, with whatever is going on? This would be a great day to get more comfortable with that, because we can never force abundance. It has to come gently and easily. It has to flow. And the same with connection. It flows. Next slide, please. One of the ways to rest in the abundant ocean is to pay attention to what you are grateful for. So I've got so much to be grateful for, and but before I get to that, I want to tell you a story. A woman was having a very bad day in traffic. They got to an intersection, the lights weren't working, and so people weren't making intelligent decisions, and they were stopping, and her window was down. She was honking her horn. She was gesturing rudely, and she was cursing out. She was cursing out every other driver and the pedestrians and everything. And she finally got through the intersection, and a police car was right behind her, and the lights went on, and the woman's officer, what have I done? What? He's registration and license and registration, please. But officer, I didn't do anything wrong. License and registration, please. Yep. Well, she said, why did you stop me? She said, well, the back of your car says, God is love, follow me to Sunday school, everything is good, everything is God. I thought for sure you'd stolen the car. You know what? We have to remember it all the time, who we are. We have to remember all the time that we're loved. Not just sometimes, not when we're here, but wherever we are. When we're in traffic, when we're tempted to be upset, to remember that everyone and everything is our spiritual teacher and is there to show us our magnificence, not our puniness, our magnificence. So, gratitude. When you pay attention to what is good, more of that good comes. And I'll tell you, I am so grateful to you. I'm grateful to all of you who volunteered this week, and there were so many, because whether the people who weren't here or here for the first time may not know this, we had 200 ministers here from Monday through Thursday. Long days, 7:30 in the morning or 7 o'clock for some people till 9 or 10 o'clock at night. It was an amazing thing. And you know what they said to me? They said, wow, what a wonderful building. And then they said, wow, what a great staff you have. What a wonderful staff you had. Mary Brogdon was here all week in the sound booth. So the staff meant volunteers. It didn't mean our paid staff, although our paid staff too, because Diane and Karen and Patty were in service. But so many people directing, serving, being present, being a steward. I just felt so blessed. I'm so grateful. I appreciate you. I appreciate you for showing up. I appreciate you for being who you are, giving of yourself. And I'll tell you that God showed up as someone that made it difficult for you to stay in that place of sweetness, and yet you did. And yet you did. And I'm impressed, and I'm grateful. And I'm grateful. Here's the thing I want to say about when our teacher shows up and they're hard to work with. And believe me, I've been that teacher. I hate to admit that. I would rather say, no, after all these years in ministry, I never make a mistake. I never hurt someone's feelings. That isn't true. But especially when a minister does, it's very painful. It's very painful. So here's my request to all of us, including me. Quit telling the story. Quit telling the story. If you weren't treated with respect, let it go. Dump it. Dump it. It isn't the truth about you. You are brilliant, wonderful, magnificent beings. You're worthy of respect, whether you were here in service or not. This is true of everyone here. You're brilliant, wonderful, magnificent beings, worthy of love and respect. Do not give a person that didn't see who you were any more territory in your mind. Don't give them any more territory in your mind. Fill your mind with gratitude for all the good that you have and all the good that you are. So gratitude is a really important spiritual teaching, a spiritual tool. Next slide, please. Isn't that cute? The listening is a really important tool for connecting. First of all, you have to listen to the inner voice of God within you, to listen, and then to listen to one another. I'm going to, after service today, the practitioners, some of the practitioners are going to be available to discuss the ideas in this talk with you. And they're going to have available this poem, which I think is very valuable. We used to teach it in practitioner training, but I think it really needs to come way before that. It's called Please Listen. When I ask you to listen to me and you start giving me advice, you have not done what I asked. When I ask you to listen to me and you begin to tell me why I shouldn't feel that way, you're trampling on my feelings. When I ask you to listen to me and you feel you have to do something to solve the problem, you have failed me. Strange as that may seem. Listen. All that I ask is that you listen. Don't talk or do, just hear me. When you do something for me that I can and need to do for myself, you contribute to my fear and inadequacy. But when you accept as a simple fact that I feel what I feel, no matter how irrational, then I can stop trying to convince you and get about this business of understanding what's behind this irrational feeling. And when that's clear, the answers are obvious, and I don't need advice. Irrational feelings make sense when we understand what's behind them. So please listen and just hear me. And if you want to talk, wait a minute for your turn, and I will listen to you. Such a great thing. So a good question is, are you really listening when you're connecting with people, or are you waiting for your turn? Are you really hearing what the person is saying to you, or are you just waiting to make your point? Because if you're waiting to your point, you really haven't listened. And if you haven't listened, you haven't really connected. And you can't make community if you haven't connected. Next slide, please, Mary. So, when we discuss this idea for being the theme for this month, Circles of Love, an old poem kept coming to me, and that's this. He drew a circle that shut me out, heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had wit to win. We drew a circle that held him in. So drawing the bigger circle is an invitation for all of us to include those that have excluded us. To include, to say, yes, you're on my spiritual path for a reason. You're here for a reason. I want to get to know who you are, just the way you are, without fixing you, changing you. Just the way you are and just the way you are not. And how I do that is by, first of all, being grateful. Second, listening. Here and here. So you listen to your own heart and then listen to the people around you. And then draw a bigger circle. Make that circle big enough for everyone in your world to be in. You won't be, not everyone will be your best friend. You know, I like to cry about that. Why not? Well, because. But everyone, whether they can be best friends or not, can be a part of the community, the common unity. Yesterday, I've had a very busy week because besides the ministers gathering, yesterday was Bill Berger's 90th birthday party. 90 is getting to be very young these days. I'm liking what it looks like. Really liking what it looks like. And it was so nice to celebrate someone's milestone. Barbara pointed out to me, I was sitting at their table for a bit, rather than celebrating after death, to celebrate while we're still here, while we're still together. It was such a great experience of community. After service, you'll get that opportunity to create a small circle of community and connect with the people in there. I really encourage you to stay after lunch and to do that, to get to know people. And here's my stretch. And choose people that you don't know, that you haven't talked to, that you haven't been in class with, that you would like to get to know. Draw a bigger circle. Draw a bigger circle. Next slide, please. When we do all of this, what we're doing is connecting with one another. My friend for many years, since I was a ministerial student, is here this morning. Reverend Connie Phelps, would you stand up? And her husband, Patrick. Connie and Patrick were here for the ministers' meeting. They actually stayed at one of your houses. I won't say who because she's not here this morning. And it's been such a treat to have them here as well. It kind of ties it together so well for me. Connie, you know, has a ministry in Africa. She goes to Kenya for 6 months. She's leaving next month. She's leaving next month for 6 months. And so I know she would love to talk to you, but you'll have to rush because they have to go to the airport right after the service. But you can Skype her, or you can email her, and she would love to tell you about her ministry. It's very exciting. It is very exciting. We had dinner together and caught up. And, of course, Patrick doesn't know my family or her family or all of the things, but he was very gracious until it was very late, and then it was time to go. He was still gracious. When it's time to go, you go. You don't have to be everyone's best friend, but you go wherever you are with an open heart. Connect with the people who are there. God in you as you is you. And you are enough. And you have enough because you're resting in the abundant ocean. And so it is. Thank you. I'm going to pray, and as I get into prayer, I just want to say one last thing, which I forgot. Go to our website where our videos are and watch last Wednesday's service. If you weren't here, you'll be so thrilled. Our music was fabulous, and the speakers were outstanding. Dr. Ken, Dr. John, and Reverend Bob Dean, thank you, all spoke, and it was just fabulous. Okay, let's pray. As I get quiet, I invite everyone to do the same, to just get still and recognize that God is above, below, to the left of you, to the right of you, in front of you, behind you. God is in you and through you as you. This magnificent power of love that only wants to create more good out of itself, to create through and by means of you. In this moment right now, I just unify with it consciously, knowing my oneness with it, that it is all that and so much more. I could never articulate all that God is. And all that God is, I am. All that God is, each one is. And I speak this word for living abundantly for each one of us. I speak this word that God, through each one of us, is more than enough. There's more than enough time. There's more than enough money. There's more than enough love. There's more than enough resources. That everything that God is, I am. Each one is. I know that this means that this relaxation into the good, into the divine, is easier and easier for me. It's easier and easier for each one of us. It is heaven on earth. As we're creating heaven on earth here and now, we do so consciously with wisdom, knowing our truth. God is love. I am love. God is beauty. I am beauty. God is power. I am power. God is I am. Knowing that that is so, what I know is that whatever resistance to the flow of life, whatever resistance may be meeting each person right now, that resistance is washed away by the truth of God's being. The presence of God within opens each one to this flow, the abundant ocean, and that it's easy, that each one is buoyant in every sense, is filled with buoyancy of love and of ease and of grace. That this ocean of God is everywhere present. And so knowing for every person everywhere, the same thing I know for myself, perfect health, vitality and energy, connection and love, as experience of community. I know thriving, and I know creativity, that creative process, the flow of ideas moving through each one fabulously right here, right now. I know that it's good and very good, and I give great thanks with my heart filled with gratitude. I simply release this word to the action of law. I accept it's complete. It is done. And please join me in saying, and so it is. Thank you. And now, Allendale.